Today, I brought to you a new guest. We're going to discuss on a different topic that so far we discussed in this channel.
I'm really excited about the discussion and hope that people listening will be interested in my story, the experience.
You've been employed, but then at some point you turn into an entrepreneurship. Tell me about why did you left your job and then started a new business by your own?
This was one of my first experiences with static code analysis, and I really like the idea that you can help other people.
Dart code metrics, that's what you call it, and then you turn it to a product right now. What was the biggest challenge here?
The developer community and developers as your target audience are very different from what people kind of used to other domains. Developers, I think, in my opinion, they don't buy emotionally, they don't watch ads, they block ads.
Welcome everyone to Flutter Original. Today, I brought to you a new guest or a guest. We're going to discuss on a different topic that so far we discussed in this channel. It's going to be about entrepreneurship. It's going to be about how to shift your life from becoming a developer to an entrepreneur or having a product and selling the product to developers. Today with me, I have Dmitry. How's it going, Dmitry? How's your day so far?
Hi. Thanks. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to discuss this topic as I've been doing it for like a year and a half, I think, at this point. And yeah, I'm good. I'm really excited about the discussion and hope that people listening will be interested in my story, the experience, and they find it valuable, at least to some degree.
So, Dmitry, I know you for a couple of years, especially since Flutter is around. So you are a good friend of mine from the Flutter community, and I've been following you. And I know that you've been doing some open source project, you've been employed, but then at some point you turn into an entrepreneurship, like an entrepreneur and having your own business. Tell me about like what has happened? Like why did you left your job and then started a new business by your own?
I think it all begins when we actually created the tool I'm working on, basically my full-time right now, called DCM. I think it all started when we first created this tool when I worked at Trike, and this was one of my first experiences with static code analysis, and I really liked the experience, and I really liked the idea that you can help other people, highlight issues for them, help them create better code, avoid like long discussions in pull requests because the tool kind of covers. And since we started the tool at Trike, I had this idea that the tool always felt to me like it can do a lot more and better, and it actually can be at its own product, let's say, a featured product, because at some like first version of the tool, it was just showing 6 metrics. Then we added rules, we had the analyzer plugins API. Then I and the person who also like created the tool, let's say, I am not the first person who actually come up with this idea, tried to create the tool. The initial author created the metrics part, and then I joined and helped develop different rules like member ordering rule. I think it's now like 3 or 4 years old, something like that. And the standard Dart analyzer does not have a member ordering rule, like to sort your classes, fields, constructors automatically, like and highlight to in the order of their order. And I think at the point where the initial author and then I left Trike, I had this idea that I actually don't want to leave the tool behind. I think it has greater potential, and we took the tool with us and made it publicly available open source, like not in the Trike possession ownership, but in our ownership and publicly available. And then I started working on it, I think most of the time in like weekends, evenings. And at some point when I was really unhappy with my, at that time, job, my last job was I was a front-end team lead in a browser product. The browser is still called Sidekick, and I was leading the front-end team there. I was not really happy with how some things were going inside the company, and that was like the point for me. Okay, and I said to myself, I think this is the time I need to try to actually make DCM a full-featured product, to put my best effort, to put all my ideas and love into the thing full-time and see how it goes. So I guess that was the point where I said, okay, now I'm doing entrepreneurship full-time. Let's go.
Interesting. Dart code metrics. That's what you call your package at the time, or it was the name of the package, and then you turn it to a product right now. So Dart Code Metrics.
And about the name, actually, it's now iTry. Again, before that, it was an open source project, and now it's a paid product. The name also evolved, and I think the community kind of accepted the new name. I and people who use it usually call it DCM, just DCM, because it's simple. And I think it's the same story of NPM, because Node Package Manager became, as a long name, became an NPM, and DCM is also Dart Code Metrics became DCM because it's simpler, faster, and easier to remember. And luckily, I had an opportunity to get the domain name for the tool. It's also DCM, and it's kind of aligned really well with the idea to shorten the name, so it works like it's called. That is the current name. Let's say that.
So you had this product as an open source package, and then it turned into a paid product. How did you find this transition? Like your customer, your community. So probably there've been some people using the open source package. What has happened over there? How did you manage this transition?
First of all, the decision was really hard, because this type of decisions can actually kill your product at all, because people will just leave. But I think the need was there. The need for a tool like that was there. And I think most of the people understand that open source, from individuals especially, is an unpaid job and takes a lot of effort to support, to maintain the project, to speak with the community, to solve their issues, to help them. Most of the people understand that it's a basically full-time job for a lot of people who work on open source, and they have no problems with actually paying for the job if it's beneficial for them. If they see the value from the tool, they are open to, from my experience at least, I see how people actually, and a lot of people supported the idea that the tool becomes paid because they see more value in it existing than in it just disappear.
That's actually the interesting part. Like many developers, many software engineers, they throughout their career, probably they are maintaining some kind of project or they're building some kind of, open source package. And so you took a different approach, which at least I haven't seen or maybe I haven't seen it. There is maybe some examples, but many of these open source maintainers, they start like promoting for sponsorship for the package, right? Because as you said, maintaining a package or like a software in open source software, well, that requires a lot of effort, but that doesn't really work in many cases. So there are some cases that it works and there's lots of users and, people are supporting the authors and they are getting like paid by sponsorship and developing that. But many cases, open source support is failing. And I see that you learned from that and then you started like diverging from somehow open source free software to a paid but higher quality maybe. First thing first, is this a paid product? Is it still open source? How did you manage even like from an open source project going to a paid project completely and maybe close the source code? How does that work?
Yeah, it's also a closed source project right now, yes. I mean, partially. We have some like GitHub Actions. Both of our actions are open source and some things are open source, but yes, the core of the tool is closed source now. So I think I will start with the idea of sponsorship, because I thought a lot on how to actually do the thing the right way, the way that it will work both for me and for the community, because I think the core idea behind the DCM is I'm trying to help my customer as much as I can, and I care about them actually. And I'm trying to provide a solution that works both for us both, especially long term. The tool stays, the tool is available, and the people are happy, and the price is fair, and they can actually access the tool. I'm trying my best here. So, and I started sponsorship. I think the sponsorship. So my idea behind DCM is that I actually want to have a team working on it. I think it has a lot of potential. It can grow that big that it can actually be developed and maintained. I'm not saying the word maintain. I would say developed by a team of people doing the different things. Some of them will be developers. Some of them will be doing marketing. Some of them will do customer support, etc. I think the team behind the tool will be the best place to appear one day. And I'm working toward that goal. And for that idea, because again, I don't want to be the buzz factor of the tool long term. I want other people to work on the tool so that I'm not blocking. So if something happens, that the tool is still available to the community and people still can use it. And for that approach, the problem with sponsorship, there are, I think, two problems. First of all, that DCM is a client-side product, and the tool works fully on the client side. And for client side, it's really hard to make an open source tool paid and client side, because it's very easy easy to copy the client side, to write on your client side because there are no backend dependencies, and you just fully use the tool without caring about that it's paid or maybe has a closed source license, like not open source license. I think in community, the open source word is means both available and you can use it how you want. And there is another term for source available tools. So DCM is not source available either because again, you just can copy, even though the license can be potentially prohibiting the copying, you can just copy and nobody will know, for example. For big companies that won't work because they have a really strict process on approving dependencies on what they use, what they can use, and there can be legal consequences for them. But for small teams, and I think the Dart and Flutter community, mostly small teams, at least at this point, I see that the number of small teams is higher compared to large enterprises. So, and for them, that won't be a problem, let's say that. And that is really a problematic situation to be in because I'm not doing like paid projects because I want to get rich from it. That's not the intention. The intention that I treat money in this case as a way to do things you want to do. And I want to do the tool. I want to be better. I want people to have the best experience from it. And for example, the source available approach was chosen and then nobody would still be paying for the tool. That would be a catastrophe and it wouldn't work. So and for sponsorship, separate. The second problem with sponsorship is that people decide themselves how much they want to pay and when. Yeah. And that is very unstable. You cannot really predict how much fuel you will actually get from people who use because they can decide, okay, now I'm not paying. I'm not using the tool or I decided I don't want to pay anymore, whatever reason they have. And this is legitimate reason. But the problem with the whole approach is that it's unstable and trying to build like a product like DCM, in my opinion, on unstable ground is really a bad decision. So that's, I think, the main two reasons why the open source and sponsorship models or source available plus sponsorship models were left behind because I think on a longer timeline, it just won't work, in my opinion. Again, I haven't really tried that and I don't know how things could have happened, but let's say that in how I modeled it in my head, I don't see the solution to be stable enough to really work out.
So let's take a moment and talk about the product itself. For those, go ahead.
I think you actually asked about the transition from open source to closed source. I can also talk about that if you want, this whole transition.
Yes, why not? Maybe I can repeat the question.
Okay.
So that's interesting, but maybe just touch one more time. How did you manage this transition from an open source to a paid product?
So initial idea was that open source and closed source tools will coexist together. So I will spend less time on the open source thing and give my full attention to the closed source, just supporting the open source tool. And that was the case for 6 months. And I realized that people actually still getting the support, still getting their tickets resolved with the open source. Didn't see really enough reason to kind of switch. So at some point, it became clear that if both versions exist and they both get attention and people still don't see the reason to transition, that won't really work well again. And I think after 6 months, again, the difference between the open source and closed source projects was already really far. The people who tried the closed source version, they even felt how different they were, how the closed source version was more advanced. It had, for example, it still has DCM fix that fixes your issues from the console in one go. And I think users always say that it's really fast. I think it's 3 times faster than Dart fix, for example, because it has different approach. And so DCM fix was available, improved unused code, and other commands. I think when I announced discontinuation process for the open source version, I think the tool has either 2 times more rules or 2.5. So it has a lot more rules and they also were very helpful, etc. So people saw the difference. And I think those 6 months actually a good buffer to start the discontinuation and that people were seeing the difference and they were happy to actually pay for that difference and for the support and to use the tool longer later on. Because again, DCM in its core helps people, in my opinion, again, I'm saying how I see it. Some people might have different opinion, but in my opinion, I think the tool helps people be more productive and helps helps them actually like enforce better coding practices without like agreeing on a common sense, and then they will be like the common sense again gets violated because someone got tired and forgot that they agreed on something, etc. So it helps people spend less time on the things that can be automated. Basically, you can just delegate all these issues to a linter that will check automatically, and you get the code after the linter that requires a lot less of your attention than before the linter, and that is valuable for them, and that's why they actually invest in basically in the tool, and they happy with it. And so, as I said, after 6 months, I decided to discontinue. Then I announced it was really hard decision to announce that, to say people that's the time where the free version goes away, the open source free version. And I wrote an article. I think I just sat and said to myself, okay, what's the reason why I'm discontinuing the free version? And I just tried to explain to people, to everyone who would be interested in reading the reason. And I basically said, I want to do it for as long as I can, and I need your help to give me this opportunity, basically, because it's a very core. You need a place to live and food to eat, right? You cannot just do things you want to do without that. And that's the core of it. And having that allows actually me now to just work on the tool. And that was my reason behind it. So just if you want to still be available, if you believe in its value, if you see the value, my goal is just to build it for as long as I can, provide you the best service, and let's go from there. Some people, of course, stopped using it. Some people still use the free version because it's available. It's discontinued. It's not getting any updates, but some people still have access to the tool. They have all the commit history. They can basically fork it, for example, and change something if they want, and it's available. It's something that I can do, because in the worst case scenario, I could have probably, force push the whole history so that you cannot go back to some versions. For example, put a license that would prevent anything at all, any usage, for example, at all, and people would have appeared in a very different, let's say, the tool would be in a very different, the open source free version would have been in a very different position. But I decided, again, for people who want to put the effort into supporting the tool themselves, the old version, it's your decision. I cannot make it for you. If you're willing to do that, if you don't see enough value in the new version, sure, like use the tool, it's available. And if you want to migrate to the newer versions and support to the new versions of the Analyzer API, if you want to continue supporting for yourself, sure, you are not limited in that area. So yeah.
Let's take a moment here and talk about the product itself, because we're talking about a product that, as you said, if there is an open source package right now and you can start probably forking and continue evolving that, right? But you turn that into a product. Let's take a moment here and talk about the product itself, Dmitry. So tell us, what really is this product that is different from other product in the market, and why now I need to pay for this product rather just going to the DCM open source and fork it and maybe add more rules? Tell us about, the product itself.
Okay, sure. I will start with the forking thing. So the tools are very different. Like the old open source version and the DCM, the closed source version, are very different from each other. First of all, the open source version is based on the Analyzer plugins API, which is unfortunately very unstable and has sometimes very, very bad performance issues that are still ongoing. Like people still bump into some issues with them, and that's I think the main problem. And that's actually one of the reasons of the transition initial, because living on that API is for people who use the tool, they usually thought that it's DCM, which was slow, but in reality, the API was the core issue. So, and I think it has 80 or 70 rules, and I think it has about 4 commands, something like that. And the new version, I think with the latest release, it will have 300 rules, not 70 or 80, but 300 rules built in. You do not need to create them yourself, spend time, maintain them, use the Analyzer API, because the new version also is a standalone analysis server, fully featured analysis. I mean, it's very close to what you have with Dart, but I've managed to remove something like 80,000 lines of code from it to optimize it for the linting part, to make it do less for other thing and do more things, useful things for the linting. So I don't use the Analyzer API. Actually, I have a fork of an Analyzer that has a lot of code removed from it, and I also have more access to change the implementation of the Analyzer. For example, DCM Fix works that way because I've changed the implementation of the Analyzer, which I cannot do if I've just used the package that Google provides, right? So DCM is based on a different type of technology, let's say that, not the plugins, and that makes it faster, more reliable, and gives you better user experience. So 300 rules, better user experience, performance, etc. I think right now it has 10 commands, something like that, and all the commands that were available in the free version are now like a lot better. For example, the unused code command was only looking for top-level declarations, classes, methods, classes, extensions, enum, etc. Top level. But now the command that is built into DCM searches for like fields, methods, constructors, and shows you way more info on the unused code. And I'm also experimenting with things like integrating the unused code, public unused code highlights into the IDE. It's now in beta. You can just tick the check mark and plug in VS Code extension or IntelliJ Android Studio plugin settings, and DCM will start showing you publicly unused code in real time. Yeah, so that's also something that's possible. And again, as you said, markets and other tools, I think DCM is one in its class tool, at least for Dart ecosystem, because no other tools actually provide what DCM provides. There is no other tool to search for unused code, unused files, unused localization, no other tool that gives you unused code integration in IDE, unused files also because I think I've added it like relatively recently, unused files. And another commands like parameters analysis, widgets analysis, metrics, even though the metrics is a part of the name, metrics actually not a core feature, at least I don't consider, and many users don't consider it core feature. The core feature is usually the lint rules and commands in general. So different commands, again, metrics, widgets analysis, etc. No other tools give that. And then we go to lint rules. I think that's the closest. I'm actually not I don't think that Dart Analyzer, I don't treat the Google team building the analyzer as a competitor to any degree. I think the DCM is an extension. It's an additional set of rules that helps you have even more checks and to cover the things that the Dart Analyzer does not cover. Because in general, in my opinion, again, and from my experience, it's important to say because some people might disagree. I think that Google builds the tools mostly for themselves. At least like their first customers is their teams, and everything that does not really match their view or their needs gets lower priority. I don't know, that's what I kind of see through the years. And that's, I think, where DCM kind of kicks in, because I believe that user experience should be like the first. I basically build a tool for others because, again, the only Dart code I write is DCM itself. I use DCM on DCM, of course, but I don't write Flutter apps, for example. I build the tool, but everything that DCM does, for example, for Flutter, and I mean, to some extent, like the Dart, Flutter are very intertwined, let's say that. It's all for other people. I can have rules, I can have and maintain, support, develop, improve, etc. rules that I even don't think can help me. But I know that somewhere there is a team or many or more teams that actually think that it's useful, and that is for them, not for me. So it's kind of different approach, different mindset.
Interesting. So now we're talking about the product. So probably so far, many have this question. I have this question. How did you turn a client-based product or an open source package to a server-side or like closed code somehow product?
It's not server-side. It's analysis server, but it's run on the client. So no code is sent anywhere. It's the same how the Dart Analyzer works. So there is server that is on the client, let's say that analysis server.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought that maybe when you close the code, actually you moved everything to a server.
No.
There is no such a thing. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah. This thing that you're talking like that's, I think, how SonarQube works. They have they have a separate instance that handles the analysis. DCM works closer to Dart Analyzer, and it's all fully on the client side. It's called the server because it's a separate process that analyzes requests from the other. But it's a client side server. I see that.
But then technically that means I have access to some code in my client side, right? If I install this package, then I can dig into what you've done. Or maybe you obfuscated and there's a lot of things that I cannot figure out.
It's a compiled executable, so it's not that easy to it requires a license to work. So I mean, to some degree, anything can be abused. I guess, everything can be reverse engineered, and any agreements can be violated. And it's social construct, right? That you are not allowed to reverse engineer other people's work. It's just a social construct. You can't do that if you how. But it also requires a license, access to the server that is my backend part that verifies that the license is active and that you can actually access the features, etc. So, but all the analysis is done locally, and I think it will stay that way because I think this experience is closer to what the Dart developers can use. To be honest, building DCM, I think it's important to provide the user experience that is very close to what the analyzer provides, because that also improves the onboarding. That people it's easier for people to get started because they already see the similar patterns that works in a very similar ways. So it's important to keep that experience aligned because because that's, I think, works well for everyone, for the users and for the team behind. Right now, it's me, of course.
Dmitry, entrepreneurial journey. So I have done this in my life in the past, and I know it's not a very straight way to go. It's a lot of bumps, one day perfect, and many days so bad.
Yes.
So tell us about this journey right now. So how do you feel? How is your life as an entrepreneur?
I think I've heard a very good quote that entrepreneurship in its core as if you have announced a party, like cooked food, like invite all your friends, and then nobody came. It's like this feeling of you working hard on something that you think is important, that everyone will enjoy like having, etc. And then nobody kind of comes. And you just put a lot of effort into basically a thing that other people haven't even noticed, let's say that. So yeah, I think it's I think that entrepreneurship is in its core is a test of your will, like mental strength and willpower, because there will be always hard decisions, there will be always uncertainty, there will be always like this pressure for some people, for some companies cases it's competitors, for some it's like some internal beliefs and that create pressure, additional pressure for you. So I think it's in general not easy, but from what I think is also important to understand, that the hardest part is the beginning. Once you start working it, you can actually, I think I've said it in some other time when people ask me, but some people need experience to get started so that they know how to do things and then they can do things. And other people need to get started to get experience. And I think the entrepreneurship, like in its, again, another part of it is that you need to get started and then figure out how to do the things. So you can just pick any, and of course it's a lot of risk. It's a lot of risk for you to like pick a random idea and try to implement it, etc. And you need to kind of measure and understand why people would want to pay for it. Will there be an audience? Will you be able to maintain it? Will you be able to stay long enough on working on it? Because what people usually, what startups generally after, that's product market fit, right? They want to find the fit for their product. But what people don't really kind of consider, that there should be a founder market fit, founder product fit. That you as a founder, the person working, should be able to enjoy the thing that you're building despite all the problems, all the like bad days, winters, years of no success. You should be able just to enjoy the process that much, to be able to overcome struggles through that also. It's another important part.
Okay, you mentioned three things which I want to maybe again repeat it. One is you need to believe in what you are doing. I think you had this already. You mentioned even during this interview so far that you believe that there is potential in this, and you also genuinely kind of liked what you've been doing. So then you turned your hobby project, your pet project, into somehow a bigger project, and at some point turn it to a product, which is interesting. And the second one, which you mentioned also a couple of times during the interview so far, is you need to do it. You need to start.
Yes.
So taking action is different from thinking, planning, my wills, my ambitions, or whatever. At the end of the day, if you don't do it, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yes.
So, and you did it. Like there is, I was actually listening to a podcast recently where one of those people in the podcast said, I really want to fail on something that I tried, and I truly believe that it was a good thing, and I actually tried and I failed. That's a better feeling than just not doing anything and then later regrets. Why didn't I do that? And you did it. You did it, and now you are a founder, you are in entrepreneurship, you are building a product, you are actually getting to a market. You probably learned a lot of marketing, sales, CEO, task, and maybe some nights no sleep, maybe some days back pain, or a lot of things like that, which always happens. But I want to ask you right now, so you get to this journey. I don't think there is any way back, and you're not giving up, and you already not gave up. So looking ahead, how did you see your business growing? What's your ambitions? What's your goal? How do you want to make sure you're moving forward in a way that you grow every day? So what's your strategy here?
So yeah, you said about the future plans, but I'll also comment on what you said before about the idea of failing. I think even with software, we have it like all the time. We know a lot better what things you should not do than what things you should do. And with entrepreneurship, it kind of goes the same way, that the more time you try, the more iterations you have, you better and faster learn what you don't need, what you should avoid, what you should do better. differently. Like with software, we say don't do like godlike classes that do everything. Do something else, and works the same with I think, but increased double down. Let's say way the effort. I don't know what's the best way to describe it. So it's like this idea is kind of getting maximized. Let's say so you need to try as many try, and then you will find the way. And yes, and taking action is important. And I think it's what really separates you from achieving your goal. Because as I was saying before, and I forgot to continue on that, forgot the initial thought that the first time is the hardest time. First, like time before, especially getting the first paying customers, because this time you need to avoid as much self-doubt and just try different things, try to find, adjust, pivot, ask existing users or potential users what they see is valuable, what they need, what they're missing. Just try. And this is the hardest part. And after going through that with iteration process, you will find what actually works. Or you understand that it doesn't work, and you have a clear understanding of what to do like next, whether to continue or to else, because people have this also idea in mind that they know, like they have some thoughts or ideas, and that if they see the words in this way, that's how it will be. So, for example, people say, okay, I think this idea is great, but nobody will buy it. In reality, you don't know. Sometimes you can just, let's say, accidentally or luckily find that what you were actually like interested in yourself and thought that people will use and buy, that they actually interested in that. And you can only find that only if you try, because all you send abstract castles in your head thinking, whether they buy or not, the reality gives you the real answer to that. Until then, you don't know. In reality, you just don't know. And I think most people stop in the thinking and just give up, and they actually need to try. So that was maybe an extended comment on your thing. Fully agree that you just need to try. Even if you fail, you will learn and you will just be able to move on and to adjust, to improve at least. And yeah, about the plans, I think again, as I mentioned, I would be very happy to have a team behind the tool so that different people come share their ideas, share views, how they see the tool also going, because we will not only have the customers who share that often. I have a lot of people who talking to me what they miss, what is not working, what can be improved, and it really helps. It's a huge source of inspiration, but also having people like with you, like in the same, I would not say room, but in the same, like behind the same idea, helping the developers, right? Also gives you ideas on what can be improved and so on. And I hope that, first of all, I think the next big step is people define product market fit differently. Some define it via the, like certain number of ARR. Some people define it through like when people are not leaving, etc. There are different ways. I don't think that DCM is there yet, because I think we still need more users to actually decide whether it's a product market fit or not. I think one of the closest steps is to go to product market fit, to understand that we are in the product market fit, to have a team behind the tool. And then I don't really know whether DCM would be the only product for like that I want to build, because the idea is somewhat more broader than just DCM. I think the goal is to help customers win in general, just to help them win with their two tasks, with their products, with their customers, because winning customers, if they are developers, they are happier. They know how they have less conflicts in the team. They spend less time on code reviews. They spend less time on tricky bugs. They happy. They build happier product. Like they happier and they build better products. Their users are happier. Their company is healthier because there are more users that are happy. And basically helping developers win. We're helping companies win, and we basically helping the whole ecosystem win. Because when you see your competitor having happier customers, and you ask how did they get there, and one of the things is that technology. And you understand that, hey, I'm not getting the same level of developer tools, for example, for my team, for my tooling. And if I get that, I will also kind of be able to move faster, etc. So it also kind of attracts more people within Flutter community. Flutter apps attracts more people from different communities. Just they want the tool that works for them and helps them win. So I think it's like, I'm not sure if I was able to explain the idea deep enough, but I think the community and the ecosystem winning starts with the very small things. Even one developer who makes their customers happy helps the whole ecosystem win, and to attract more developers and to attract more users, etc. So yeah, I think that's the idea behind. So I'm not sure whether DCM would be the only product, but right now it is. And I think the full focus on the tool for at least a few more years is required just to grow the user base, help more people, etc. I'm not
so the life of an entrepreneur is the life of an entrepreneur is so sweet right now that you want to expand it. You want to extend it to more products and building more companies. And
yeah, I'm not, you said, well, what's your long-term plans? I thought that's how I understood your question initially. So if talking really long-term, I don't know whether DCM would be there, but for the nearest future,
that's brilliant. That's brilliant. That's actually what I wanted to hear, and actually give this motivation to our audiences, like those who are listening right now or watching us, to see, like, you're going to try one product, you see how it evolves, but then you learn a lot, and then maybe that product fails or success or whatever, then you do the next thing that you want to do, and then you do the next one, and then you do the next one, so you are moving and you are taking actions. This is actually great. This is actually an inspirational story that I'm hearing from you. They're fantastic. So far, I bet you have many challenges. I asked this question already, like bumpy days and so on and so forth. If you want to name one of the biggest challenges that you had as an entrepreneur, like as a developer who turned into suddenly a founder and then having a product, like what was the biggest challenge here?
I think it's the present challenge, I would say. The developers very different. The developer community and developers as your target audience are very different from what people kind of used to in other domains, let's say that. Because for developers, regular marketing, the commonly used known marketing doesn't work. Developers, I think, in my opinion, and from what I see, they don't buy emotionally. They don't watch ads. They block ads. They the audience that avoid ads by any cost, right? They buy rationally. They want to play with tools. They want to experience the thing before buying. And that is a very different audience from actually one of the core problems of why a lot of projects are not getting paying customers, because developers also not really into buying things. So, and that's one of the ideas behind the TCM, is that a team-oriented, company-oriented tool, because developers on their own are very not into buying things. I don't know how it appeared that way, but what I see and what a lot of other people who build different developer tools for different ecosystems, etc., they all say the same thing. Developers don't buy. And that's just the reality of things. So that's again why DCM is oriented for teams, because teams, on the other hand, and companies are businesses. They understand the value, they understand the productivity thing, they understand that if their developer spends 2 hours on the thing that can be automated, that's a wasted time. That time can be used to build the thing for their customers. They see the value and they're ready to get the tool to get this value. For developers, that's another story. So I think that one of the most challenges is actually to explain to developers, because developers are also the audience to some degree, because developers work in the companies, right? To explain to them the value, to give them the knowledge and any help possible to show the value to their teams, to their bosses, to their companies who actually make the decision about buying, so that they can have the tool. I think that's one of the biggest challenges overall, and it's really because of the target audience, because of to whom you try to sell. And there's another subsequent problem. Sorry, there is another subsequent problem. Sorry if I interrupted you. That developers also have this, I wouldn't say this love for building things themselves. They can just I can build the thing myself. I will just do it without using your tool. And I've seen that, and this is a real thing. And I'm also a developer. I understand why it happens, because developers are really into learning new things, to understand how it works. But when it comes to teams, for example, developers don't really think in money terms. And for example, when you talk about the company, you say, okay, to build DCM, it will take you X amount of money, which is 15, 20 times more than paying for DCM. So you might want to reconsider building your own thing, just buy it. For companies, that works. They understand it. They actually can calculate the full spend. But for developers, especially individual developers, they will I will build myself, even though if they know that they will throw away their side project in a week, in a month, or they will not ever finish it, or they will get a worse result. The idea of building is in their core, and I understand that. But the challenge here is to show them that they don't need actually to rely on themselves all the time. They can use already built for them solutions and benefit from them, instead of putting, I don't know, thousands of hours to just build the same thing. That's
it's funny, because I'm also a developer, Dmitry. We are also both developers, right?
Yeah.
And you've been talking about this, and I always thinking myself, you're actually right. When I see some products, I can do that in 2 days. And in developer time, 2 days mean maybe a couple of years. So
Yes, that's another thing.
that,
I'm asking like
that's one
companies.
thing actually, Dmitry. Another thing actually I was thinking, I was actually right now thinking, I was laughing about it, is you've been talking about like your developers gonna like, spend money on something or time or whatever. And I was thinking like, you're right. I'm happy to pay maybe $200 for a keyboard and just have a noisy sound of the keyboard and say, I have a mechanical perfect keyboard. But then when it comes to maybe $20 per year product, then I said, no, this is too expensive. So
Yeah, that's
that's
real.
funny.
That's very real. Yeah, and I wanted to say that about building that you mentioned the estimation problem. I'm also asking companies like, and when your developers tell you the number to build the same thing, remember how often they tell you the correct estimation numbers, because usually, unfortunately or fortunately, that's not the case. Developers are not really good at estimating things, and I also it also applies to me. Sometimes you can see that, oh, that will take like 2 days, and you end up doing it like for 2 months or something, just because the complexity tools like DCM show that you can hide a lot of complexity behind, and it will look like very easy to re-implement, but in reality it's hard. For example, people write code in so many different ways, and the rules that look like very simple, there are so many different edge cases and situations where it doesn't work because of some small difference in how people write. And to cover all of that around your code base, because you also have different people in your team, you potentially have different teams that write differently. And if you, for example, building lint rules yourself, you need to understand that there are a lot of complex cases that you need to think. Otherwise, the lint rules that you get, they lint for something, but not for everything. And people well, I build thing. I think that it works amazing, but in reality, it just covers like one case or two cases, and others just being skipped. That's not the level of quality for DCM. And I think that most of that is because of the community, because the community, the users, they very actively submit bugs. They show where it doesn't work. And for rules that look really simple, it usually takes like a lot of time to make them cover all different cases. So even in case of DCM, if people want to like build something of their own, they are likely to very shortly find that to build a lot of rules that you will spend a lot of time building them and supporting them and finding all the edge cases that you missed. Because in my opinion, having a lint rule that works, sometimes it's a bad rule because it gives you false notion that you covered all of it. But it's not. If it's not the case, you're just like skipping a lot of things. For example, let's take the rule for DCM that is responsible for finding not disposed fields. If you cover only some cases, other fields that you not covered and you have not noticed, they will just be leaking, and that's not a good thing. So the complexity and the estimations are part of it.
Interesting. So let's take a look at your experience right now as a developer's entrepreneur, and tell us also what lessons so far, the biggest lesson that you've learned from your experience, things that you've been gone through and now you have a better understanding. Like, what is the biggest lesson that you learned?
Multiple lessons, actually. One of them, I think we have discussed before, that the lesson of taking action is really important. You just deeply need to take action because, again, your ideas might be completely wrong or completely right. But the only way to see that is to act. So first of all is to act and to iterate, to change, to ask, to talk to people, to just try to adjust it to its best. I think second lesson is, and the practice that I try to apply, I think I'm doing it well, but who knows, that you need to be very user-oriented and show and do everything for the user, for their success, because their success, your success is a product for them, because they're your main audience and you need to put effort and to basically serve them so that they can solve their problems better. And happy customer is a returning customer, so you need to keep that in mind. Happier customers basically means that your product is growing and succeeding, etc. And I think another also important lesson is that you need to choose your audience wisely, because, for example, if I chose the individual developers, and I see it very clearly right now that at least in the current model, in the current packaging of tiers, etc., individual developers don't have enough value to stay long. Teams, they stay. Even if they have a monthly subscription and annual, they just stay. They see the value, even though they have monthly subscriptions, have unsubscribed like anytime, like today, tomorrow, at any time. They don't. They stay. It means that they see the value long term. But with individuals, that's not the case. I think half of the individual subscription at this point has left after 1 month. And I understand that. But for example, if that was my target audience, that would have been a very bad metric, because a lot of people were leaving. But you need to understand that you need to choose your audience and you need to build for your audience first. Even though if an individual developer comes to me and says, I actually want to have a CI/CD key, I understand that if I do that, it will damage I won't be able to attract my target audience well. And the only way from that is to say, our tool is for teams, not for individual developers. So sorry, that won't be available for you. That's like the best answer I can come up with. Because again, changing the tool for not your target audience will most likely...
I guess this comes to the priority for the product development, right? So you definitely, when you get your product, somehow is recognized by developers or your customers. So then a lot of feedbacks come, a lot of requests comes, then you need to start prioritizing. You need to start for product development is actually a very complex area, let's say. It's not my expertise whatsoever, but so priority and putting some of your customer that is giving you the most probably revenue is making sense, to be honest. I think relate with this quote that you mentioned. In the past, I also had similar kind of entrepreneurship, let's say, life at some point. And I went through this quite deeply. So I know in many times you need to disappoint people and, it's not very nice, especially if you as a founder that you don't want to disappoint people. It's hard for you to say no. It's going to be super bad day when you say, I need to actually prioritize something else, even though I like to do this, but then I have to say no, which is very hard. Dmitry, I think I want to ask you the last question for the interview. And I guess this is going to be a question of many, many folks who are going to watch us or listen to us. As I said, I myself, I would love to see myself one day a founder or entrepreneur one more time. And I know it's challenging. I know it's hard. I know that there are lots of bumps on the way. And I know that you have also had this situation and you are still having that. You are still building your product, building your business slowly. If you want to give an advice to someone like me who wants to build a business, who wants to become an entrepreneur, who wants to develop a product, who wants to sell a SaaS service or whatever, what kind of piece of advice you can give us?
Let me think, because that's a very complex question. Some people don't actually need any advice from me. I think they just need to act. That's maybe my only advice is to...
Maybe this is an advice. Just don't think, act.
No, it's not don't think. It's think and act, but don't forget to act. Just thinking is not enough. That's for, I think some people they know what they need to do, but for some reason, external or internal, they're just not acting on that. I understand that it's risk. It's very scary. And it's basically stepping into nowhere. And you actually need to weight the chances of you succeeding. They're usually not high. They're usually very low, but you still need to approach that mindfully, because doing that mindlessly would probably lead to more problems for you later on. But if you approach it mindfully and you actually see how it can work, acting on that is really important. For those who are just ready to act, but not acting right now, I would just say try or assess the reality of it. Either throw it away or try, because in the state of I want but something is stopping me is I think the worst here. It will drain you and it will also stop you from doing things. So you need to decide. And for other people, I think it's really important to ask yourself a lot of questions. Yes, first of all, yourself, whether you are ready to go into that, because it's some people develop, I would say, a habit. They just do their work without actually putting a lot of effort, and they kind of get used to that. They do their work and then they just do other things in life that they enjoy. So entrepreneurship is a different type of journey. You need to be fully committed, because the chances of you failing are much higher, a lot higher than chance of you succeeding. And you need to have each chance, every chance that you can have to succeed, you need to use it. It includes a lot of effort, no weekends, late evenings, sacrificing time with your family, etc. It includes a lot of sacrifices just to get better chance. It's not even to win, it's to get better chance. That's really important. So you need to ask yourself questions about whether you're ready to go that way, actually ready. And you need to understand you personally one problem you want to solve, whether there are people who want these problems actually solved. Because some people end up innovating and solving problems that does not really exist or doesn't really bother other people. And it is also a problematic situation to be in, especially if you love the thing that you do, but you see that nobody actually uses that. For some products, you just need more time to people to recognize, to understand, to see, and you also need to adapt, of course. But for some products, it's just dead end. That happens. You need to be able to recognize the difference between the potential and the dead end. There are a lot of other questions for audience, for whom you're building, how much they want to pay, whether they're interested. So you need to start with questions around about basically everything. And answering those questions will lead you to a clear understanding, whether it's worth trying or not trying, or worth not trying at all. And after that, as I said, for the first group, you just need to take the decision. Either you go in with it or not. And it will most probably be a downgrade in your like quality of life. Because for me, for example, I'm bootstrapping DCM. I don't have any investments, etc. Bootstrapping the company is really hard. And for the first 6 months, I was not getting any revenue from it at all. It was just working, and without any result. And you need to be ready to that your quality of life will get lower, that the journey might take you years, probably has no completion, might not have any completion at all. You'll be just doing it foreseeable future. And you need to kind of ask yourself and understand the pros and cons and decide on whether you're ready or not. So I think that's actually a relatively actionable advice, especially for people who are interested. You need to understand a lot of different things, and you need to ready. Another thing I think is really important. You need to be ready to forget the word "it's not my job." When you're a founder, and especially if you are alone, if, for example, you have no access to venture capital or to hire a team, everything is your job, and everything that you do wrong or bad is your problem to solve. You need to understand that you need to change. You need to learn things. You need to understand how things work and change yourself, and then to unblock the development of your thing. If you don't kind of work on yourself and understand that everything is your problem, especially when it comes to product development, to building the thing, you won't get far again, because nobody here to save you, nobody here to cheer up for you. It's all your journey. It's like you need to act on every problem that appears.
Cool. Dmitry, thank you very much I really enjoyed our conversation, to be honest. I didn't even count how long we're talking, and then suddenly it's over 1 hour. And very nice to talk to you about this. And I know a lot of folks are going to relate with what you said, and a lot of them actually want to try to become like an entrepreneur or having their own product and like selling a product. I guess there's a lot of things that we have not covered or discussed about this journey, of course. And I want you to come back one more time, or maybe a couple of more times, just talk about, your experience, and let's talk about this. But then as the final section of this interview, a closing word, what do you want to tell us? Anything. Mike is yours.
I think one of the important building your thing also helps you find like-minded people in the community. For example, for me, it's in the community and outside of the community that actually help you become better in what you're doing. And those people become like a part of, because for example, in my case, a lot of users, especially first teams that converted from free version to paid, were people who I had good relationships, and I admire them as people, and I like them as people. And I think building those relationships with them, despite them using the product or not using the product, was a great experience. I'm happy to have these people as friends, people who I can just write like in Telegram or in Discord or on Twitter, just saying, hey, how you doing? What do you think about the product? How was your day, etc. And I'm really happy to have these people around. And in really dark days, I always remember that even though if everything goes like south, let's say that, you still have these connections, these people who you share these moments of discussing the things that you both kind of like. They like it from the user standpoint, you like it from the developer standpoint. That is worth something, even though if everything else goes south. So you're not just going to journey alone, but you are also finding people that long-term people, let's say that people are here for you and you are here for them. And it's also like an important part. So if you want to contribute to the community, that's what also is a part of the contributing to the community. You will find people who motivate you, who help you, who you start to admire for some things, who are your friends, long-term friends. So again, try the thing, speak with the people. And I think that you just need to, again, trying is the core thing. On your journey, you will meet different people, you make different decisions, and you will end up somewhere. These new people, new with new friends, with new skills, with new or another view on the world itself, on the process, on the tool, on everything. It will help you grow. So if you kind of tired of repetitive life, trying that can help you grow and meet other amazing people around you, because actually a lot of people trying to do something with their life and like trying to contribute to community to some way, and that's sharing what you have is one of their way to find kind of meet them finally. So that's worth a lot.
Thank you for coming to the show and sharing your experience and your valuable lessons that you've learned with us. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone wants to ask any questions, I'm ready to help. Just feel free to reach out, for example, on Twitter. And if you have relative questions towards the overall like product development, how this, how that, I'm happy to at least help you. But please also keep in mind that not all of my experience is transferable, and for some decisions you need to take on your own, and my experience might not work for you. Keep that in mind. And thank you again. Thank you for having me.
I will leave the Dmitry's contact information to the show's description below. And thank you very much for watching. See you next time.
Bye.
All right. I think this was great.
Recording
I don't know if you enjoyed. I actually really enjoyed.
Recording is still going for me. So yeah.